Welcome to The Problem, a Lockwood & Co. podcast. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Alan.
And I said my name well. Yay.
There you go. Good job.
Maybe that stuck with me a little bit. Anyways, this week we're talking about some more of part 3, but still not all of it. Yeah. Just chapters 9 and 10. The Bloody Footprints, part 3. We introed it last time. I don't know.
Trying something different. I think my secret hope last time was that we would be able to push through all of part 3 with this one.
What? Oh, you mean in this? I was like, I didn't even read these chapters last week. What are you talking about?
No.
But this week, yes, I see.
Yeah, that we would be able to swallow 4 chapters, but I just feel like they're too long and they're also like, there's too much going on. Yeah. Maybe when we get to the parade later, we'll be able to move through that quickly. Not this stuff.
I don't think we have to move through anything quickly.
We have to, Caitlin. The sponsors are so angry.
The sponsors. Oh, I was going to make a joke about that agency and the potato sponsorship, but their name just escaped. Bun Church.
Bun
there
Church,
it is.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. That would have been hilarious. It would have been good. Alas, it is only mediocre.
I think last time we didn't talk about the tightly clenched butt cheeks of Bun Church, Adam Bun Church, in the book.
Good old Bun Church. What would we do without them, honestly? We need somebody to shit on.
The second smallest agency in London, I think they are.
Yeah. But, like, all but 2 of their agents are useless, so really they're the smallest. All right. Chapter 9. Miss Wintergarden hires Lockwood & Co. to investigate a haunting at her townhouse. Now, my sister's very first, grade 1 teacher was named Miss Winterbottom.
Oh.
And so I am gonna mess that up. It's just 100% gonna happen. And funny story, when my sister came home from school the first day and my parents asked her what her teacher's name was, she definitely said Miss Snowbum.
Snowbum. It's good.
Yeah. And I don't know why I remember that. I wouldn't have been there for, I was alive, but not my sister's 4 years older than me, so I wouldn't have remembered the instance. But I know the story.
It seems very English, this name, Wintergarden and Winterbottom. I don't know. Americans would not do this.
Miss Wintergarden? Yeah, well, we were in Canada, which name and culture-wise is the same as America.
I guess. You guys are, on better terms with those people than we are.
I suppose. In a government way.
Yeah.
Not in a me way. Not in a...
You don't hang out with the English on a regular basis?
I like England, and I've been there a few times, and I have a lot of friends there. But that's just because they speak English. So I you leave the continent, but you don't have to learn a different language.
Do they, though? Do they really speak English?
Speaking of my first trip there, I actually did have way more culture shock than I thought I was going to have. But that was also, I was 17 and I left home for 6 months for the first time.
Yeah.
So
I can't handle it. Just reading these books or watching YouTube videos and stuff, I'm always getting confused by the things that English people say, because you're we talked about this before, how you were raised in it and I just wasn't. And so I'm just surprised all the time about I think I know what you're saying, but I'm not totally sure.
I don't know. I think I like it though, the different cultures, or the very similar cultures, but with the differences that you can tell they sort of evolved on different paths.
Yeah. It's fine.
But generally ended up in the same capitalist, racist place.
Yeah. It's just a shame that they refused to obey us and we had to have a war about it. But other than that, the English are fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That's what happened. I went to public school. I know what happened.
They dumped your tea in their
That's right.
At Southampton.
That's right.
All right. So the chapter art. Wow. Is the little harp symbol that we've been seeing around, and maybe we get a clue to it here.
The tiniest violin in the world. I feel like we explained the whole Orpheus thing in the previous book. I remember doing that for some reason.
I do also remember talking about Orpheus, yes, but I don't remember if that was was that just you and me though? Is what I'm saying.
No. I remember.
That wasn't an episode?
Yeah, I remember it being in the episode. Yes.
So me being like mysterious about it and maybe we'll hear something about it is just stupid. Stupidity.
I just can't remember how it came back up in the second book, but I do feel like this is the real way that they get, like Mrs. Wintergarden is kind of like the bridge into higher society that Lockwood's been looking for and George has been looking for with the Orpheus Society and stuff. So this is the best doing that. Yeah.
The best part about this, I mean, I'm jumping ahead as per always with us, is that she says she does like charity work for them.
Yeah.
But they're like a group of high society old people.
I know. I have notes about that. I'm like, what is she talking about?
Anyways, we'll get there. So we start off with Ms. Wintergarden coming to visit Portland Row here. And what in the heck? Okay. I see what I wrote down. Okay, let me back up here. My notes that I jot down in the book are not usually very loquacious, right? I just write down a silly little thing to remind me of what my thought there was. Mm-hmm. And so in this one, I wrote down probably 35. And of course, their address is 35 Portland Road. Oh. So my brain was like, of course it's 35. What are you talking about? But no, my actual thought there was when Lucy says, I judged her to be in her early 50s. And I wrote down she's probably 35.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Although I see this lady as like the lady in the Titanic movie, who, like in my mind.
Which lady? Kathy Bates?
The old lady who's like...
Oh, the mom?
The one who's like at the beginning of the movie who's like, it was 85 years ago when I boarded the Titanic.
Yeah. I don't know why that was the last old lady to occur to me, obviously, that old lady. And I feel like maybe I owe an apology to Kathy Bates.
Kathy,
I don't know if she was old at the
No,
time.
Kathy Bates was, vivacious and full of life. I love Kathy Bates.
Oh no, I love her too. She's
wonderful.
75 years now, so she would have been, like in her 50s then. Yeah. I think I just pulled the in your 30s.
There you go.
Equivalent of teenage Lucy saying that this lady's
perfect.
In her 50s.
Yeah, I am very susceptible to whatever the narrator tells me. I'm like, you say you're ugly. I believe you. Everyone is ancient around you. Yep, that's what's happening. I'm kind of dumb that way.
I'm kind of the opposite. I was actually like paying attention to the physical description of Miss Wintergarden this time, and I was like, oh, that is the exact opposite of how I pictured this lady.
Ah.
Like I pictured her as old, but I pictured her as more like Ghibli old.
Okay. I get what you mean. Yeah.
Like kind of saggy. Uh-huh. And this is like, no, she's barely there. And it's like, oh, that's just not the personality and I don't picture her that way at all.
Yeah, she is very tiny in every way. It seems like there's just not much to her. I like that though. That does feel authentically like aristocratic or posh or something like that to me.
Oh yeah, I probably just like decided I thought the personality belonged to a different look, which is probably bad of me. Somehow.
I don't know. Yeah, you should definitely feel bad about it. No, that's weird.
Thanks, Alan. I am pretty bad about not paying any attention to physical descriptions in books, which is fine when it's like, you picture the hair differently or stuff, but can get problematic if you picture different races.
Yeah. It can be confusing.
Although usually I default to like picturing white people as black.
Mm-hmm.
I don't generally make black people white in my brain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's always funny to see online when people do that. And then the bad thing about that is when the writer is like very sly and is like showing you, remember this character, and I will just describe them, and then you can kind of puzzle out that it's the person. But in my head, they have like red hair and like all this stuff that the mm-hmm. author is like, no, they have black hair and they're short, and they're like, yeah, I just ignored all that and made up my own person. Sorry. So then it all just goes over my head and I don't know who they're talking about.
That must have happened to me too, but like to the point that I didn't even notice
mm-hmm.
it. I feel like these first couple minutes I've been pointing out a lot of Caitlin not being so smart. So let's move on.
Just how books work. You can't see what they're saying. So like my first note here is about how Lucy is constantly using either all of Holly's name or her last name only to like create some kind of emotional distance or to like show her resentment of the character, it feels to me like.
Yeah, she called her Ms. Holly Monroe.
Right. It's always her. If she says Holly, it's always like bracketed in some way. It's Ms. Monroe or Miss Holly Monroe. It's never just Holly.
It's interesting because I think because of that, that's how Holly feels to me. Like she feels like a Miss Monroe, you know? She doesn't feel like a friendly Holly, but that's probably just because that's how Lucy sees her.
I think Holly would like that to be like, you know, like you would call her Miss Monroe and she would use your last name and she would feel good about that. To be like, oh, we are so professional.
I think that too.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much of that thought is Holly or is it Lucy?
That's true. I might be doing this exact thing that I just talked about.
Yeah, that's what I'm pointing. Yeah. My first note here about Holly and Lucy was as Lucy's describing where and how Holly is sitting and how it gives her this sort of air of authority and like the ear of the boss and type of thing. I'm like, okay, this is a bit much, Lucy.
You could almost like imagine her. It's like a Mad Men scene or something where the secretary is almost draped over the boss kind of thing. That seems to be like how she feels about it.
Yes, that is how Lucy feels about it. I don't think that's what's happening here. No. And generally speaking, I'm always on Lucy's side in the Lucy versus Holly, but sometimes it's like, okay, girl, chill. Goodness.
We get mentions here of Chekhov's carrot cake, which seems great. Yeah. Like, I would love some carrot cake, please, George.
It also just in general introduces the idea of the group eating cake, which is like really integral to the final scene.
Oh, right. Yeah.
To the like the drama and the humor of that final moment.
It's good.
I don't know. I kind of like that we're setting that up here. As like Miss Wintergarden is describing her rich household and her servants that work there, I am confused about the child labor laws in this England.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because she says she has young people working for her as though she's existing in Victorian times. You know, she's got a boot boy and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how old are these children?
That's true, because they can all see the ghost. That's right.
Right? What are you paying? How? I don't think that's legal anymore. Like I get that you're, and suddenly I'm picturing her in like a Victorian dress too, you know? And I'm like, what? This is confusing.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I wonder...
I had been under the impression that outside of agencies and Night Watch, you could not hire 12-year-olds.
Right, just to dust and stuff. Is it the kind of situation where there are servants who live there and they have kids who are there?
That also feels a little, you know, legally gray.
Yeah. I mean, Lockwood does it.
Even like with Lucy and George.
Yeah. That's a good point, though. I hadn't thought about that. But everyone must be young. They must be teenagers at the oldest. Not everyone, just... But yeah. But the people like, who are complaining.
I feel like here in Canada, you can get a job with your parents' permission if you're 14.
Yeah, I think that's true here, too. It's depressing.
And just the way that she talks about these kids, I don't feel like they're that old.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I do wonder... I don't know. I do wonder if maybe because of agencies and Night Watch, things have reverted a little bit on the child labor front.
You might be right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or, I don't know, Stroud just got confused what time period he was writing in.
She's like a throwback in all these ways.
That's what it feels like. Because even when she says boot boy, I picture him in like servant's clothes from, you know, the early 1900s, shining up a boot. Yeah. I don't picture a modern kid. Anyways, if anybody has answers, I want them.
Yeah, I wonder what the labor laws in London have to be better than that now.
Outside of the book, yes.
In the real world.
I would presume.
There is like a funny grammar joke that happens here where...
The bloody footprints?
Yeah, footprints, bloody footprints. And George looked up, well, I'm sorry you're upset, because... bloody is both an adjective and an intensive. So it's like, that was fun. I appreciate that.
I do wonder, maybe we need an English person to weigh in on this. But is bloody like a bad swear word in England?
I think it's vulgar, but it's not like...
Like, where would you put it? Like above damn, below fuck, I presume. But like, where in relation to shit is it? I don't know.
I don't think it's as vulgar as that. I
have no idea.
Yeah. I don't think Mrs. Wintergarden would ever say bloody as an intensive.
You almost said Winterbottom, didn't you?
I was like really watching it.
Amazing. Amazing. Love it. Sorry, carry on. I interrupted.
I don't think she would ever use bloody as an intensive the way that George is saying, like ever.
I don't think so either. Yeah, no, I don't think so either. But I'm just curious about where it falls on the scale, for lack of a better.
Yeah, but I don't think it's as quaint as being like gosh darn heck or something like that. It's not that.
No, I don't know. No, I definitely get the impression that it's not something you say in quote unquote polite company. Yeah. Anyways, then we get like 5 pages of this woman describing her house before Holly finally jumps in and is like, could you tell us about the ghosts, for crying out loud?
That's good.
Even though I do really like that bit where you can see Lucy and George and Lockwood all like resign themselves to hearing 45 minutes of history about this stupid house. And Holly is just like, could you get to the point? And then they're all like, wait, we can do
You're
that?
You're allowed to do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is more of that same thing that I was talking about before, when you run a small business and you just don't know things. And then you just learn like, oh, I am allowed to do that. And it's also, I think it's part of her job. Holly sees it as being like, Lockwood is not being mildly rude to her. It's the secretary who's being mildly rude. Like, that's part of her role. So she's like speaking on behalf of him. Like, Mr. Lockwood does not have time for this. We only have an hour. So I thought all of that's really well done.
I thought that was well done too. And even from Lucy's perspective of being like, oh, she has a backbone and Lockwood seems to like it. Should I have a backbone? Like,
yeah.
in these types of situations, I'm not saying Lucy doesn't have a backbone.
No. Yeah. Holly is a constant mirror for her to gaze at and be like, how am I inadequate? Let me count the ways.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's also like a cool thing happening here with Mrs. Wintergarden where she's like, all of this stuff that is like, she goes on for 5 pages, and it's not just that adults always do this, but what we find out is that all of her kind of just like nattering on is a psychological buffer to her guilt.
Yep. Yeah, so eventually we get to the story of bloody footprints appearing on the staircase at night and how it's gotten worse recently. And eventually it comes out that it's been happening for years.
Right.
And we haven't heard any. And I feel like, didn't we recently say somewhere, like when they had the job at the beginning at the bread and breakfast, quote unquote, they say that it's illegal to not report a haunting, don't they?
Yeah. You're supposed to report.
So, and it's been going on for years, and the servants always knew about it, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, why? I mean, I get that she's rich and in society, so I guess she doesn't have consequences, but.
Well, Holly even says that to her. She's like, you should have reported this. And she's like, listen, Deepak doesn't need to know about every little thing. This wasn't a big deal. Like, she bases it on her own judgment. And then she also says, like, I don't want dirty Deepak boots in my house. So, you know.
Which sounds very classist.
Yeah. And it's also because I think nothing significant was happening with the haunting and she couldn't sense it. It was really easy for her to ignore it.
Yeah. But like, what I don't get is, why didn't she put a bunch of lavender out on the stairs?
Or something, right? Yeah.
Or something, yeah. Like, have them redone with some iron underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Or, put up an iron railing.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the fancier word, balustrade.
Yeah.
Balustrade?
I think that's the word they use when they get there.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever said that word out loud before. Interesting.
Yeah, I love when they talk to her about it. They're like, "So what might be happening here?" And she's like, "To my knowledge, to my knowledge, my home has never been the site of any violent or passionate incident whatsoever." So it's like very posh, like everything has always been perfect where I am. There's no scandal in my closet.
Right. But like she does mention that her father bought the house, and I guess neither of them ever looked into the history of the house.
You would think the incident
They're just
would like cause you to look into it, though. It's weird.
Or just general curiosity when you buy an old home.
Yeah.
Like, who lived here before us? What was their story? I feel like buying an old home like that, especially if you're rich and want the status, you want to know who else has lived there so that you can say, oh, yes, this used to belong to Lord such and such or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
So either she's lying or she's dumb.
Right. Yeah. I think, I don't know if it's a lie so much as like she's just definitely convinced herself that this is true. You know, like my ignorance is real. That's reality. I looked this up. So the place where she lives in London, I was like, how far is this? So she lives in Hanover Square, which is a very like, it's like right by a couple of palaces and stuff. So it's like very expensive part of London. How far is it from Chelsea was what I was trying to figure out. And it's only like 2 or 3 miles from Chelsea. So it's pretty close. So it makes sense that it's like this has been happening for a long time, but it has begun to intensify. So it's kind of like a clue as to like what is going on in the larger story.
Yes, because it was for years, like the lady does say, just the bloody footprints. And then just recently, it has become more. That was a bad way of wording it.
No, I think that's right. Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah, it's become like there's now people are feeling like dread, and there's like the malaise, the psychic malaise is happening. The cold is much worse than it was, and so it's just intensifying.
Yes, and of course, what did she do then? Did she go to Deep Rec? Did she hire an agency? No. She hired a bunch of night watch kids, 9 and 10-year-olds.
Right, which apparently is her MO, is I need to hire more children.
That's what. I need more children. And then she, like, after the children spend some nights investigating and say that it is real bad news and you need someone with more talent than us, she's like, no, this is what I hired you for. Investigate the problem. And then one of them dies.
Yeah.
And one of them ends up in what I've always assumed was the inspiration for the show version of Ghost Lock.
Right. Like Nori ends up.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's like catatonic. Yeah. It's really crazy the way that she talks about it. I think, again, this is kind of like the amount of resentment and entitlement that she has is all like kind of a psychic buffer for her guilt.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell underneath it all she feels really bad about what happened, but she only in hindsight, I suppose. You know, she didn't feel bad about forcing the kids to do it beforehand.
She does.
Even when they said they didn't feel comfortable with it.
Right. They're like, we don't want to do this. She's like, they were scared. It's their job. Why are they scared? It's like, come on. It reminds me of that guy, I can't remember his name now, from the previous book, who's like, it's your job to go out there and deal with the dangerous stuff. That's what I pay you for in the graveyard.
Maybe the two of them have like a secret romance.
Right, yeah. Maybe it's just how adults treat children.
What was that guy's name?
Yeah, it's really bothering me. Like,
shoot, the Sweet Dreams guy. Yeah. Oh, I can't think of either of their names.
It's good.
What was
Saunders?
The partner's name?
But maybe that's right. Saunders.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a podcast about Lockwood & Co. It's good. It's part of old age. You can't remember these things.
I was never good with names, so I don't. You know what? I have literal holes in my brain, so shut up. Don't judge me. That's my excuse for everything now.
You're fine. It's fine. Yeah, so this lady is like, yeah, exactly. Like, I was asleep. I came out. Everyone is messed up. And then George is like, I can tell that we're going to need some cake because of this situation. And starts cutting up the cake and handing it out, which I appreciate. Like, when things get bad, Stroud always like throws a joke in there to keep it from being too bad for his readers. The important thing that we learn here in terms of like the physical layout of her house and stuff is that this staircase is like the way the townhouse is laid out. There's like the big building with lots of houses that are all attached to one big building, and it's very vertical. So like there's a staircase that runs from the basement all the way up 4 floors, 5 floors, whatever, and it's a spiral. And so her room is like on the top, and the Night Watch kid was up there and fell off from that level all the way to the basement.
Yeah.
And so died that way. And it also seems later when we see the apparition that that's what's going on with the ghost as well. That it
like that's what the original murder was, that
a fall.
One of them pushed.
Right.
Yeah. Although they were also stabbed at the bottom of the stairs, because that's how they're bleeding all the way up. Right,
yeah. It starts with a stabbing and ends with a fall. That was the whole confession that she was avoiding so much, and she goes back to like being resentful after that.
Yeah, well, Holly kind of gives her a bit of a talking to. Mm-hmm. Like, and it's good. Like, these children should not have been used. It was very wrong of you. You should have called an agency. And the lady's just like, well, I'm doing so now.
Right.
And I do think underneath all of her bluster, she does feel very bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, I don't think after the problem at her house is solved, I don't think it's going to plague her that much, though.
No, she'll keep telling herself she did everything she could have done and she did it the right way. And I think that she would go on believing that nothing ever happened at her house that was passionate or murderous. So, like,
I'm intrigued that it hasn't become like a status symbol to have a house with a ghost in it, to have a house with a murder that...
Yeah.
You'd think...
Like...
I would think it would be the other way around, that you want to have the most haunted house. Like, we had to get 3 agencies to come in and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. Maybe it was that at like the beginning of the problem, and now it's gone the other way.
She's probably old enough too that she remembers the pre-problem world.
Yeah, she feels that way if she's 50. Well, if she's 50, like, just.
Yeah.
So the other thing about George handing out the cake that I really like, because it's one of the we get a lot of instances in this book of Lucy talking about how smart George is and how, he reads and he's the researcher, and then he comes in with the research. But we get very few instances of George showing the reader that he is not just book smart, but smart, or whatever. But this is one of those instances where he hands out the cake, he's pulled the attention away, given everyone something to do, and then he just very subtly is like, what's with that harp?
Yeah.
And it's really good.
I hadn't looked at it that way. That's true.
No, I do think, like, I'm not saying George didn't want the cake. Obviously, George wanted the cake.
Right.
But I also think it was a plan to be a distraction and to put everyone in the mood where he could ask about something that wasn't strictly relevant to the case, because everyone was, nibbling on their cake.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And it just felt like, I think it was really smart of him to do it that way.
Lucy is not nibbling. She is gulping it down like an antisocial seabird, but I see what you mean.
But again, Lucy, being the narrator, reports the conversation to us, but she doesn't say anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She doesn't mention that it sounds out of place, or that George sounds like he was fishing for information, or why is George asking about this? It's not relevant right now. So even Lucy is kind of tricked by George.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anyway, and this is where we get our very first mention of the Orpheus Society. The
Orpheus Society. That is clearly a charitable organization.
Maybe she does charitable work with them. Like, she runs, like, they do charity work, but she runs their events or something, and they donate the money
Yeah.
somewhere.
I assume they absorb the money for their own purposes. But I do like that this shows that the Orpheus Society is tied into kind of upper crust London money. Like it's not just inventors or researchers. They need resources for that stuff. And so this is probably how they do that. They pass themselves off as some kind of philanthropic club.
Yeah.
And then pull in networked people like her. It is important that she's part of the Orpheus Club because of, like I said, everything that she will become a bridge to a part of society that Lockwood wants access to. So
yes, exactly.
And it's also probably how, because this is all a referral basically from Holly. They wouldn't even be talking to her probably without Holly. And it's probably how Holly knows her, is because she would have been connected with people at Rotwell. And
yes, and we do get the point where Miss Wintergarden says that she wanted to hire an agency, like a better quote unquote agency than Lockwood and Co. Right. But they're all busy with the Chelsea problem. So Lockwood and Co. it is.
And she also calls them cheap.
Yeah, so as she's sort of wrapping everything up and giving them, like, even after all the obfuscating she did about the child death in her home, she still doesn't, like, right away give them all the details of the haunting.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, she's like, after they're like, oh, is there anything else? Eventually she's like, yeah, so there's 2 ghosts and they run up the stairs and everyone's like, what the hell?
Yeah, like the most important detail.
And I just wrote down, this lady sucks.
I think that's what Lockwood says at the beginning of the next chapter too.
Oh, yeah, but in a posh British way.
And there is, like, I think this is really deftly done and is important for the twist that's going to happen with this whole haunting, where she's describing the 2 ghosts running, and she's like, one is little and one is big, and the smaller shape, and Lucy like interrupts her, is like, was running for its life. And so she has already, without being there, assumed what's going on here. And I think it all is part of the reason why what you were saying earlier about all of her servants are children and things like that, like all the exploitation and stuff has built up to, and how unpleasant she is, has built up to us, like, thinking of children as victims and the death of the Night Watch kid and all that stuff, so that we are just totally bought in on Lucy's interpretation of the haunting immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really, really well done.
Yeah, you almost don't need to call him Little Tom. But that wraps up chapter 9, and then we're on to chapter 10, because that's how numbers work.
Numbers go up. In chapter 10, George tells Lucy and Lockwood about a murder at the townhouse, and they observe the bloody footprints that night.
And the chapter art is the staircase.
Yeah.
Lots of staircases in these books.
I know. I literally have that note.
Yeah.
Necklaces and staircases, like, strategies into them.
Maybe, I mean, there are a lot of stairs in London. I have a lot of resentment about it, actually. Because, look, the thing is, we went to Paris for 3 days, right? And we climbed up the Eiffel Tower. We did not take the elevator. Well, that was fine. I didn't mind that. But what happened was, the group that I was with, we kind of split up because I was the only one who wanted to walk all the way up to the top. Everyone else just wanted to hang out at, like, the mid-platform.
Yeah, the observation.
Which, whatever, that's silly to me, but I was like, no, I'm going up to the top. Nobody wanted to come with me, so then we had, like, a meeting place later. So I walk up to the top, and I'm like, this is cool. There's, like, a gift shop up there. And I'm like, okay, I'll buy some postcards. You got me, Paris. Anyways, and then I realize I'm behind schedule to meet up with everyone, so I run down the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, no.
And let me tell you, you don't understand how many muscles you use going downstairs.
Oh, yeah, going down is worse than going up, I think.
After a while, I could, like, feel my muscles being iffy about holding me up as I went downstairs. And I was like, oh, God. So obviously, for the next week, my legs are sore. And there was this one part, and then obviously we took the train over to London, and now we're in London. Anyways, and there was this one bit where we were walking around somewhere in London, and we had to walk up 3 stairs, and my legs were like, oh God. And then we had to walk 10 feet, and then we had to come down 3 stairs. And I was like, why? Why is this here other than to punish me in particular? And I'm sure it's been there for hundreds of years, and somebody could just see into the future that Caitlin would be walking along this path. It's been almost 10 years, and I'm still angry about it.
You're like, this'll get that Canadian girl. Can't wait.
Oh. And like our hostel had so many stairs, no elevator, just stairs. How do people in a wheelchair get around in London? It must be a problem.
Yeah, I don't think they worry about that. It's an ancient city.
Even just if you have like a cane or, need any sort of walking help. What is the word I'm looking for when you have a thing that helps you do a thing? Whatever, it doesn't matter. People know what I'm saying.
I have no idea.
Anyways, now I'm all riled up. Let's go on. Chapter 10 opens with the words, she's an utterly awful woman.
Yep.
Which is Lockwood's version of this lady sucks.
Yeah. Callous and ignorant and hysterical. He doesn't like her.
Which, it's so funny to me because, although maybe this is only show Lockwood and book Lockwood does this less. I don't remember. Because Lockwood's always saying how he wants to, and maybe not be a part of upper society, but that's who he wants his customers to be.
Yeah. I think that's definitely true of book Lockwood, yeah.
It's interesting that when it happens, he hates them.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever really have time to dive into that. Like if he changes his mind or anything.
It's a good instinct, I think. I just take it at face value, I guess.
Yeah.
He's a working class guy. He's a small business
But he doesn't
owner.
like to think of himself that way.
No.
Yeah.
Because he's like the owner operator, but he still has to work.
Yeah. So they're talking a bit outside the house, and we get a bit where Lucy's like, this is going to be a great job because Holly's staying at home and it's just the 3 of us, like it always should be.
Mm-hmm.
And and she says she feels optimistic, and I underlined that and went, oh no.
Yeah.
And then immediately after that, Lockwood is like, so Holly's sandwiches, they look fine, don't they?
What a good job she does at everything. She's so perfect.
She's just like, mm-hmm. And you can tell that he's trying to be like, do you like what's happening here? You should like Holly because she does a good work. And speaking as someone who over-identifies with Lucy, if there's ever something that, like, maybe I just need some time to adjust to it or something like that, like when we moved, my sister, who is my roommate, was very excited about the move and really liked our new place, blah, blah, and she kept trying to convince me to be really into it. And the more she tried to talk to me about how much she was excited and how excited I should be, I was just got angrier and angrier about it.
This place is actually the worst.
Yeah, like maybe I'd rather die, actually. You know?
No, I get that.
So I think Lockwood is going about things all wrong here, is what I'm saying.
I think he does ask her actual opinion, and then gives her space to give it, and she starts to have that conversation with him, and he just immediately backs out of it and is like, George is here.
And he's like, oh, thank God.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little confused as to what degree Lockwood is doing the thing that you're saying of like, isn't Holly great, and trying to convince her and get her on board, or is like, I keep thinking about what she said of because I didn't read it this way at first, but I think that you're right, where he kind of took 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and Holly can kind of be a way of making all of Lockwood and Co. a little bit more professional to Lockwood and a little less personal. And so it feels to me like it happens over and over in this chapter where Lockwood is like, we need to be professional, we need to be on the job, and we're not friends, we're coworkers. It keeps happening in this chapter, and that's like one of the spots where it happens. Which
is like the exact opposite of what Lucy wanted when she came to Lockwood and Co.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like, or much to your point, I suppose, when he asks her about Holly, I suspect Lockwood just thought she would give another wishy-washy, yeah, she's fine, whatever, answer. And then when it seemed like she was going to dive into the real emotions. He was like, oh, thank God, George.
Right. Yeah. He was like, oh, never mind.
It is very much like Lockwood is maybe trying and then being like, oh, I don't want to try.
Yeah. You see somebody at work and you're like, oh, how you doing today? And then they start to like really answer that question. And you're like, oh God, please don't tell me about your life. I was just saying hello. I don't stop. Not like this. No, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so they head on into the house. Yeah,
they go into the house. Everything looks fabulous in there. It's extremely rich. There's little children everywhere polishing things. That's not true. That last one's not true.
The house is empty.
Yeah.
Because at least she was smart enough. Well, I guess most of the servants just quit. I wonder
right.
if she would have made them stay. That's interesting. Anyways, but the house, somebody was murdered by a ghost, so people got out.
Everything looks really cool. And like I said, rich and ornate. I like when they go up to the servants' room and it's like really tiny. There's cots. Everything is like stripped back to the boards. I'm like, yes, this is how it works. Like where all the work happens looks like shit and everywhere else is incredible. Yeah. So they see the stairs and the stairwell and everything.
And they find that they did salt the ground where the night watch girl died.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
And they cleaned up on the basement floor. You can't see any blood or anything like that.
Yeah, so like it was salted and then it was cleaned up. They just find a little remnants of the salt. So they know that it was done. So it's nice to see that Wintergarden is taking it seriously now. Maybe she was forced to.
Maybe she was forced to by Night Watch.
Yeah.
I wonder how that works. We never hear about like any adult Night Watch keepers. It's just always kids. I'm sure they have adults who run the thing though. I
don't know. I've always thought it was kind of like unofficially underground.
Oh, that's terrible.
It started as, kids who couldn't get jobs as agents, but maybe presumably parents dead, a lot of people die in the problem, that type of thing.
It's like
and so they just sort of
Uber
formed their own. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, contractors. I hate that.
Yeah, so they just formed their own group. This is how I've always imagined it. The book gives us almost nothing.
Yeah.
But then, I just get the idea that the kids formed their own group, and then it just got big enough eventually that Deep Rat kind of ignores it.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
They're like, oh, that's
and
useful.
People just hire them. And yeah, exactly. And I don't know about taxes. I'm going to say government kind of unofficially ignores them too.
Yeah, terrible.
Because they're just a bunch of kids.
Because it's like Uber. It's the same thing. They're like, whatever.
Yeah.
You're not making enough.
I don't think we allow kids to drive Uber, but I could be wrong.
I'm just saying, like, yeah, that's just how Uber works. It's like, oh, you keep track of your taxes. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about that.
That's how I've always pictured it. I don't picture there being like adults in charge because they talk about the bad lifespan and yeah, so it just sounds like something that's gotten left behind, kind of.
The kids just bury each other. Ugh. It's terrible.
Yep.
Yeah, this world is the worst.
That's why we don't talk about it very much.
So they come up with a plan to observe the entire staircase from the basement to the top. Well,
before that, they sort of set up a picnic.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to hang out in the kitchen where the girl died, which is fair. So they set up a picnic kind of area with their holly sandwiches, and they make some tea. And George sort of tells the story of what happened, which is that the son of the rich owner killed one of the servants called Little Tom.
Right.
And instead of being hanged or sent to jail, he was sent to, and now this is an interesting point. I don't know if this is a typo in my book or what, but he was sent to Bethlehem Psychiatric Hospital, not Bethlehem. It's just Bethlem, and not Bedlam, but one weird combination of both names. And I'm like, did somebody just forget that extra E? Is this a different Bethlehem hospital? I wouldn't think so. Like, what is happening here? I don't know.
Sometimes in a Kindle edition, you can highlight a name and it will be like, this is the place that they are referencing.
Right.
But nothing comes up. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about London. This is like in the 1800s. So maybe it's real.
So, Bethlehem Hospital was real, was a real place. Right. And that's where we get the term, hey, it's Bedlam in here.
Yep.
which has always bothered me because I read it once in a fantasy book and then I stopped reading.
Oh, Bedlam?
Because
yeah.
Or somebody used the term Bedlam and I was like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, that's real dangerous. The more you know about etymology, it can really throw you out.
Yeah. Well, like that is such a new word too, because it was like in the 15 to 1800s. Anyways, whatever.
I know exactly what you mean though. I do that too. I do the same kind of thing.
But like the whole champagne argument doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess we all draw our line in different places. So anyways, I just don't know what's happening here with this different spelling. If somebody could let me know, please, if this is a common different spelling, if this is a completely different, if this, isn't St. Mary's of Bethlehem or whatever it was originally called. But I mean, they say it's a psychiatric hospital, so it must be. Anyways, carry on. This doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter.
At the beginning of the whole thing, when they are doing the picnic, with the holly sandwiches, it gives me that feeling that I was talking about with him and his conversation with Lucy about Holly, that he just wants to make this as professional as possible. Like he's trying to be so detached from them as his friends, it feels like.
Yes, I never thought of this that way because at the end he's like, what did kids do before the problem? School or something? And he says that like he doesn't really know what school is, but we know that he does.
Yeah.
So
he's even detached from himself there. Like everything is work.
I guess to me that it does just make it feel like a joke, like he's joking around.
Yeah, I think it is a joke in terms of like, but I think he's saying something real too at the same time.
But anyways, they do quickly get down to business, so it works.
Yeah.
And that's when George tells the story, and then they come up with their everybody in an iron ring on a different floor plan. And this is when he gives a talking to Lucy also, right? When he's like, stay in your iron circle, don't try to connect to the ghosts.
Yes.
What you did with that lady ghost previously, it had results, but it was dangerous. Don't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he says, use the skull, let him take the risks. And I just feel like in this scene, exactly what is going to happen is so obvious in this scene.
Well,
because of course she's gonna, not tonight.
Yeah, later.
Like I'm not saying Lockwood should have known. I'm saying it's good writing. Like it just sets it up perfectly.
Yeah, I think that's you're right. And that's a big part of what is happening here story-wise. We're going to, watch the haunting happen so that later we understand what's happening when we try to stop it and like everything goes wrong.
And Lockwood also has this other bit where he says it's a 2-night job. Holly says that's how they do things at Rotwell.
Yeah.
And I just, gosh, Lockwood.
That's how real agencies do it, you guys. We need to be a real agency.
Yeah. Exactly what George and Lucy wanted.
Yeah, they love that.
When they left their real agencies.
Yeah. That's all they've wanted is for it to be like what it was when they were at the other place.
When one of them was fired and one of them watched her whole team die.
It's the best. I think Lucy is not like against Lockwood here at all. When he's saying that kind of thing. And in fact, she kind of doubles down on her assumption again. That like, because George starts to like meander a little bit. He's like, well, there's 2 ghosts. Are there actually 2 ghosts? Or is this one ghost that's manifesting some kind of echo? And Lucy's like, it's not as confusing as you're saying. It's Cook's wicked spirit that is driving this. We need to find the source and destroy it. So she's like doubling down on her assumption that the adult is chasing the child and that this whole thing is like a malicious ghost that she wouldn't want to connect with it anyway, basically.
Right. And then we get after they all set up in their circles, we get some minimal Skull, who is very much like, ever since you pointed out the whole Skull is Lucy's inner monologue thing, I have trouble thinking of him as his own character.
Yeah. That's
especially, I think, in this book.
It's really true in this book, I feel. He just is always digging
I wouldn't listen to him. If you want to make psychic contact with a killer ghost, I say, why not?
Go, girl. I like that.
Yeah.
I like feminist skull.
I do.
That's good.
Yeah. I do like the idea that Lucy's voice is like echoing, so Lockwood and or George can hear just her side of this conversation. Yeah. And her just saying, no, what do you, no.
That's always got to be the joke with those two.
I do love it. And then George sneaks up to Lucy's iron circle, and it's done in a way that's actually kind of like, holy shit, George, what are you doing?
I really like this because it feels like it underlines the whole thing again, that, and especially because out of the three of them, George has been on the most jobs by himself, it feels to me like. He really like misses them, and he is really like, hey friend, I miss you, kind of a thing. And it really underlines how Lockwood is like job, work.
Yeah, I agree.
I think even Lockwood tells him to like get back to your spot. What are you doing?
Yeah, I guess that is a good way of writing George feeling that way, because it almost does feel out of place, because George is usually so...
He's the careful one.
Yes, the careful one. That's a good way of saying that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't even occur to me that that's what that probably was, that he just wanted somebody to talk to. But it's George, so he has trouble saying that.
Yeah. I felt bad for him.
So then we get the haunting.
Yeah.
Which is proper creepy.
And it seems like the air is much colder than what Mrs. Wintergarden was saying.
Well, like, how would she know? She stays in her room.
That's true.
She's probably got iron on her door. You know.
It's probably got like a little child in there who just puts the like hot coals underneath her mattress in that style.
Yes, somebody just stays in there all night to put another log on the fireplace. Anyway, so there's like frost creeping up Skull's jar because Lucy left Skull outside of her iron circle, which a part of me, because I love Skull, is like, oh, how dare you? But he's a ghost. What else can happen?
Yeah, I don't think... Do you think they could hurt him or mess with him? I don't think so.
Certainly not in his jar, because that's the whole point. Ghosts can't pass through. If he were outside his jar, I don't know if ghosts could mess with each other. That's interesting.
Yeah. I feel like he would mess them up, if anything.
Yeah, because he's a type 3. Yeah, that's fair. I have so much to say about that, but you haven't read book 5 yet, so let's carry on. And so the haunting goes on, and apparently there's candles lit up the staircase, which I missed.
Oh, yeah. I really like this effect, though. This is cool.
Yeah, and have them going out as the bloody footprints rise up the stairs. Yeah. Very creepy.
That's good stuff.
And eventually Lucy does step out of her iron circle to... Oh, because there's a sound from downstairs, and she thinks something may have happened to George. So she steps out and gets that like pre-ghost lock where you can't move type of thing.
Right, yeah.
Until Skull kind of snaps her out of it, and by insinuating that Holly would be better at the situation than she would be.
Yeah.
Which is so like Lucy's inner monologue coded. So good.
He says, I bet Holly would have the wit to get back to safety. And then something needling jabbed me inside. Indignation cut through the ghost lock.
So she jumps back into the iron circle, very not Holly way, because she just kind of sprawls over all of her stuff. Holly would never.
She would never trip and fall down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then we see the two ghosts run by.
Yeah, so the way that they run up the stairs past her, there's the first ghost it says small and fragile, the cloudy imprint of a child. And then the second one is larger, much larger, a bulky adult form. It goes after it.
And then shortly after they pass by Lucy, we hear Lockwood say, the haunting's over.
Right.
And that's the end of chapter 10. Yep. I was staring at the words chapter 11 when I said that. So it was like chapter 10.
Yeah, she hears something like fall through the air, and then there's no sound of impact, but she doesn't see what falls. But the actual seeing of the ghosts and the child going first and the adult going second, like, just reconfirms all of her assumptions about what's happening.
Yeah. So we had 2 chapters without Holly. That was nice.
Right.
Oh, no, Holly was in the other chapter.
She's like there the whole time in the background, no matter what, for Lucy.
Again, I say that from Lucy's perspective. I do like Holly. Yeah. I feel like I need to say that.
I feel like the show, the way that they had set everything up, would have manifested a lot less antagonism between Lucy and Holly, because there was already a lot of feelings between Lucy and Lockwood of like.
I would be so interested to know how that was going to go. Like, I really wanted it, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
I don't know.
So.
Anytime I talk about my Holly takes on Twitter, people are like, shut up. Or they're not here for it, which I get. It's fine. I just feel like she would not have been the same kind of character. I don't think that she would have been such a Little Miss Perfect in the show, because she didn't need to be. And it wasn't about that.
She also isn't a Little Miss Perfect, right? Because we're seeing her from Lucy's perspective.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's very different when you're not in a character's perspective. And again, I would have really liked to see how they did that, but we'll never do.
We'll never
see it.
I don't know about that. I am dumb and have hope. Best worst joke.
Was there a joke? I mean, the only joke I can remember is the one where Lockwood is like, what, school? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, cake is kind of a joke. I know, but I guess
I do like Jump Scare George. Which is not necessarily a joke, but it's so unexpected that I don't know. I like Jump Scare, can I have some gum, George?
It is funny the way that it's set up, though, because she's talking to Skull, and Skull is like, you're so stupid, you don't even know when somebody is sneaking up right behind you right now. And then the stairs squeak, and she like jumps and yells.
Yeah.
And then it's just George. So that is kind of, he played a joke.
I do like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I wonder, this just occurred to me out of nowhere, but I wonder if Lockwood feels about Skull the way Lucy feels about Holly.
Aww.
Like, Lucy has somebody else that she can talk to about all these things and blah, 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 blah.
What are they talking about? They're probably talking about how much they hate me.
He can never be a part of the conversation. Like, it's physically impossible.
That's funny.
And that's funny. Anyways, I really don't feel like anything very punk rock happened these chapters.
No, I mean, if anything, they get more like, we need to be a real agency. And Lucy's like, I'm going along with it for now.
I guess George getting the Orpheus Society information out of Wintergarden was ever so slightly. You could see that as being just because it was information he's wanted for 2 books now.
I think you're right about that. It was very slick of him. It was very tricksy. Yeah.
And he wanted it and he got it. So yeah, that's what I've got for punk rock.
Since I limited us to 2 chapters, there really just not a whole lot happens, but it's all under the surface. It's all set up.
do feel like this book in particular is not the most punk rock book.
No. It's the most emo book, maybe? Maybe book 5 is more emo, I don't know.
No, book 5 is not very emo. I don't know much about the emo scene.
Yeah, maybe I'm using that wrong because I don't know anything about it at all.
No, the emo music never really jived with me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if jive.
Yeah, emo people love to say jive.
Yeah, what the heck?
They say jive turkey. They say, yeah.
So, I don't really know anything about it.
I just mean it's emotional. This book's very emotional.
But it's all like couched in like you said, Lockwood trying to make it professional.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, everybody is in their own little fantasy and trying to like make it real, and it's just really not working. Yeah.
Very big lack of communication in this book.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you want to, I don't know, disagree with everything we've said, or let me know about any of the English things that I asked about, all of which I have forgotten. So that's great. You can reach out to us on Twitter at Lockwood Podcast. And you can follow me on Instagram if you want at Inferior Kate Reads. And Kate is Cait.
And somebody will be like, here's the history of Bethlehem And then Caitlin's going to be like, why are you telling me this? And
No, that one I'll remember.
Okay.
Because that's like a weird interest of mine, the Bethlehem Hospital. It just is. And they spelled it wrong, or I don't know what's happening here. Anyways, I want to know.
It was the off-brand. It was like
It was the off-brand.
the Burger King to Bedlam. McDonald's. Yeah.
Yeah, you have your blurb now.
If you want to reach out and send an email about that, you can do that, contact@hollowgroundmedia.com, or you can go to the homepage at hollowgroundmedia.com and scroll down to the bottom where there is a contact form and fill that out.
And remember to always eat your carrot cake.
Yeah, that's not hard to remember.
I'm not actually a fan of cream cheese icing. Like, I like carrot cake, but it's always got cream cheese icing, and I don't care for it.